Good morning everyone. So in the last class we have discussed about what are all the sanitation regulatory agencies are available and standards are available, and after that we have also seen about the various food contacting surfaces, what are all the sanitation requirements they must fulfill, and non-contacting food surfaces as well. So today we are going to see about the regulatory considerations which are followed or which requires to be followed in the food processing industry, and also safety requirements for the food. Okay, so first we will discuss about the regulatory considerations in India, and even though these regulatory considerations are varied country to country, there are international food laws that has to be complied for all the countries which are involved in food processing and food manufacturing and food import and export. So that also we are going to see about. The first one we are going to talk about the current scenario in India. So in India, the Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, which is nothing but FSSAI, is the apex food regulator, and it is empowered by the functions under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. So this particular Food Safety and Standards Authority of India is empowered by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, and also it functions under the same ministry. So this FSSAI implements and enforces the food regulations as prescribed in the Food Safety and Standards Act 2006. So we call it as a FSS Act. So this act is an act of parliament and popularly known as the Food Act. Okay. So this FSSAI implements and enforces the food regulations as prescribed by the Food Safety Standards Act, so which is nothing but FSS Act, and this act is a act of parliament in India and which is popularly known as Food Act. So the number of food legislations have been consolidated in the FSS Act and became effective in 2011 with FSSAI as its regulatory body. And though Act continues to evolve, it needs further harmonized with the standards of international agencies for global parity. So this is what I told. So though we are saying that the FSSAI is the regulatory body for the food safety and standards in India, so the Act also intermittently amended with the certain modifications to further harmonize with the standards of international agencies to as per with the global scenario. And FSSAI standardized 380 articles of food in 16 categories, and any other food requires the product approval if they are not listed among these 380 food items. So this is the scenario about 2015, and there is another amendment in 2017. So that is implemented from January 1st 2018 onwards. So till then the FSSAI standardized almost 380 articles of food in almost 16 categories, and if any other food which requires the product approval which is not standardized already, so if they are not listed, so under these standardized food items they need a special approval. The standardized food products are those for which standards are prescribed and do not require any product approval prior to manufacture, sale, distribution or import. So if any of the food products are listed among these 380 articles of food in 16 categories, they don't require the product approval prior to manufacture, sale, distribution or import. So the first time manufacturer or importer of standardized food, so which is already there in FSSAI, only requires an FSSAI license to begin a food business. So, they do not require the product approval. But at the same time, the non-standardized food products do not have standards as their safety parameters, or either not known or not yet ascertained. So, there may be new food items, right, or new food formulations. So, they do not come under the already listed standardized food under FSSAI. So, there may be two reasons for that. One is they come up with the new food formulation or not yet ascertained. Right. For the new food formulations, there may not be any safety parameters which is already known, or they are not yet ascertained. So, FSSAI works to standardize more foods in harmonization with Codex Alimentarius. So, this I talked about in the sanitary requirements itself. Okay, so this we are going to see what it is, right. So, this is the international agency. So, as of now in the sense before this last amendment around 2015, so FSSAI standardized almost 380 articles. So, the standardized and non-standardized food items came into existence based on this standardization of articles under FSSAI. So, standardized food means, so they are already there, the safety parameters and their formulation and their level RDA, they call it as, right. So, recommended dietary allowances. So, all the informations were listed in the FSSAI. So, in such case, those standardized food items do not require any prior permission or prior product approval for manufacture, sale, distribution or import. If the products are not listed under this FSSAI category, so then they need a product approval before the license. Okay. So, that means their safety parameters are either not known or not yet ascertained. So, already if the food item is standardized under FSSAI, so then what we require is only license for any food business. And also this FSSAI is working to standardize more foods in harmonization with Codex Alimentarius. The traditional foods in India, right, so they also do not require product approval because they are already being consumed for centuries in India, and the ingredients and the preparation methods are well known for those traditional foods, and this guarantees their safety. But if however the traditional foods use any new ingredients other than the traditional methodology or traditional ingredients or food additives or new technologies in preparation, they need a product approval. Sometimes what happens, so based on the current trend, they may require some food additives. For example, certain traditional foods, the shelf life of them is only 1 or 2 days. If we want to increase bit further for a week, so we may require some food additives to be added in the traditional foods. So, any such case, any modification in the process or any modifications in the ingredients of the traditional foods, so they require a product approval. The foods imported into India have to follow the FSS Act rules and regulations. And if the food articles are standardized, the importer only needs a FSSAI license to import them. The importer also needs to comply with FSSAI regulations for sale and distribution of the foods. So, it is not only for the food processing or food sale or distribution in India. So, if the importer, right, importer of the foods also need a FSSAI license and as well as the approval for any sale distribution of their food products in India, right. So, if the food articles, whatever the imported food articles are already standardized under FSSAI, so they require only license, but if not, they also require the product approval, right, before getting license. So, that means the importer also comply with the FSSAI standards, acts and rules and regulations. So, for any sale distribution of their food products in India. If a new or unknown food article is introduced for import, right, so if any new or unknown food article, so that means non-standardized one, it is considered non-standardized and requires the product approval under section 22 of the FSS Act 2006. So the FSS Act 2006 does not apply to foods being exported out of India, because why? So they do not require the product approval because it is not sold to Indian customers. So the exporters do not require FSSAI product approval, as these fruit products are not sold to Indian consumers. So the exporters. Non-standardized food products awaiting for product approval are assessed for safety in 4 categories. So when we apply for product approval, how the process goes, right? Because if it is a non-standardized food, so we are supposed to get approval from the FSSAI. So what is the procedure? So the expedited product approval, a 90 days outer limit is now in place for completion of the application review process. So it is like every other process in India. So it has got 90-day window limit. So in this 90 days window limit, it goes for various level of reviewing processes. And if the product is referred to the scientific panel for further scrutiny, then it may be more than 90 days. If there are any certain standards to be checked by the scientific panel, so then it may require more than 90 days. The time limit could be extended more than 90 days if the product has to be sent to scientific panel. On approval, they can immediately apply for license. Okay, so till now what we have seen, so in the current regulations or scenario in India, what we are seeing. So as far as India is concerned, the Food Safety Standards Authority of India is the apex body, and the first FSS Act came into existence on Food Safety and Standards Act as a Food Safety and Standard Act in 2006, and it is an Act of Parliament and popularly known as Food Act. So till then almost till 2015 almost 380 articles are categorized in almost 16 categories. So based on that, there are 2 major categories of the food products. One is standardized food products, non-standardized food product. Standardized food products only require product license to manufacture, sale, distribute or import, and non-standardized food items first has to get the product approval. So that takes almost 90 days window, but for any case it has to be submitted before the scientific panel, then it may require more than 90 days. So after once they get the product approval, and they may go for immediately license. And based on the standardized non-standardized food item, the importer exporter also has to comply to the standards of FSSAI body, because the importer needs the same process, first product approval and then license for their sale and distribution. So if their products are already standardized, they can go for license. If there are non-standardized food, they have to get approval and then go for license. But exporters, so they don't require the FSSAI product approval, because these fruit products are not sold to Indian customers. So then the new draft regulations. So as I said, right, the amendment was recently implemented in 2017 and it got into the practice from January 2018. So in that, the special interest is the section 22 of the FSS Act, which deals with nutraceuticals, functional foods, novel foods and health supplements. For the first time, regulations have been proposed for these categories of food. So when we were talking about nutraceutical also, so I especially told you about this FSS Act. If these products propound nutritional or medicinal benefits, they need to have a sound scientific evidence, right? So to get the product approval, we are supposed to submit the scientific evidence. And these products must not contain either steroids and psychotropic drugs. So this is also important. Anyway, we are going to see the FDA regulations on these nutraceuticals, and what are all the nutraceuticals already into the regulations based on the scientific evidence. We are going to see the ingredients like vitamins and minerals must conform to the recommended dietary allowance. So this is what we call it as a RDA for Indians as proposed by the Indian Council of Medical Research. So in such nutraceuticals, the vitamins and minerals must conform to the recommended dietary allowances for Indians as proposed by Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR. And according to food safety and standards, so which is nothing but licensing and registration of food businesses regulation 2011, it is mandatory for all businesses operators, manufacturers, importers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, hotels, restaurants, eateries as well as the petty food businesses to have an FSSAI regulation license so that they are in compliance with the FSS Act. So, in India, the food businesses operators, manufacturers, importers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, hotels, restaurants, eateries as well as the petty food businesses to have an FSSAI regulation and license so that they are in compliance with the FSS Act. So, there may be a confusion, right? I mean, what is a food business? So, what is the limit, right? So, for that the food businesses with an annual turnover up to Indian rupees of 12 lakhs need a registration certificate from the FSSAI. Also, if the turnover is above than this amount, then they need a license as well. So, if it is up to 12 lakhs, then they may require the registration certificate under FSSAI, and if the turnover is more than that, they need a license to do their business. The licenses of two category, one is central license, another one is state license. So, this is well known. Central means issued by the central government and state means issued by the state government. The central license is issued on the basis of manufacturing capacity as well as the turnover as we seen here. Those operating food businesses within Indian state need a state license that is also based on capacity and turnover. So, one particular state, if we are running that particular business, we need a state license as well. And those operate businesses in 2 or more states require an additional central license for head office. Head office there is a central license, and registered office and separate license registration for other locations they operated in. So, if the business is running between states or 2 or more states, so they require a additional license from central government for their head office or registered office, and also they need separate registration and license to the locations wherever they are doing the state businesses. Only transporters need a singular license or registration for all vehicles and individual transporter runs. So, if the food businesses require the vehicle, so then they may require particular license and registration for those vehicles as well. So, those food business operators that deal with non-standardized food, so which requires the further product approval and license, have to first apply for the product approval, only then they can obtain a license under the licensing and registration regulations. All importers and exporters have to obtain a central license from FSSAI, so that is important. So, Food Safety and Standards Amendment Regulation 2017. So, this is what I have been talking about. So, it was the first FSSAI came into existence in 2006, right, FSS Act. And in 2015 they started adding the standardized food varieties and categorized them into standardized and non-standardized, and they kept on adding these non-standardized food items once they got their approval and their license. So, then slowly they start adding into their standardized food items as well. So, now the recent amendment in the regulation was happened on 2017. So, the food safety and standards, so that means the food product standards and food additives amendment regulation 2017. So, it was again done under the regulatory body of Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, FSSAI. So, this operates under Official Gazette of India with reference to microbiological requirements for fish and fishery products. So, this got major concern in 2017 amendment regulation. So, the regulation considers the following criteria. The one is revised microbiological necessities for seafoods and new varieties of fish and fishery products, and maximum allowable limits of hygiene indicator organism and safety indicator organism in a wide range of fish and fishery products, other food items, namely oils, fats, oats and pasta, and sampling plan and reference test method for microbiological limits. So these regulations, even in the when we were discussing few slides earlier also, we have discussed about this, right. So the once the act is made, and then and there may be a revision and there may be a amendment regulations. And also while we were discussing about the pasteurization, we also told, right. So almost centuries back there was some other organism was target organism for pasteurization, but after sometimes the target organism have been changed, organisms have been changed for many processes. And same thing, so the first 10 lectures we were discussing about the recent developments in the food processing technology, right. So for example, the sensors, biosensors is a new area which is developing. So these kind of test methods also then and there included in the food safety and standards. So that is why this particular act requires amendment then and there. But how it is being done, we are going to see in couple of slides after. These standards have been finalized and come into force on 1st January 2018. From then on, this is being followed. The revised microbiological standards aim at guaranteeing quality and food safety of seafood produced in the domestic market. So that is what I told, it is done majorly for these sea products. Okay. And so how it was done, right. So when they thought about the amendment, so what are all the steps, or at least in 2017 amendment regulation, so what are all being followed. Through a notification dated October 2016, the FSSAI made changes to the food safety and standards regulations 2011, right. So the previous one is 2011. With reference to proprietary foods, the existing regulation of 2.12.1 has been altered and substituted with the new one. The FSSAI considered objections and suggestions that it had invited from the public on 27 April 2016. Okay. So the notification was done around October 2016. And before that, objections and suggestions invited from the public also taken into account in their draft regulation and made this alteration. And these regulations were considered as a food safety and standards. So otherwise food product standards and food additives, 9th amendment regulations in 2016. So then FSSAI come up with the definition of proprietary food by offering the details as what is not to be integrated as a proprietary food. The proprietary foods will therefore include foods that have not been standardized but will not include, right. So it's not like all non-standardized items will come into this category for product approval. So the FSSAI come up with the definition for the proprietary food. Okay, so based on that, the proprietary foods will therefore include foods that have not been standardized. So that means non-standardized foods, but will not include the new foods for special dietary usages, foods for special medical purposes, practical foods, nutraceuticals and health supplements. Any deviation in the quality parameters of standardized food as specified in the food safety standards regulations under FSSAI does not imply that the resulting product is a proprietary food, right. So there may be a chance, right. So if the quality parameters of standardized food is not met, so can I put it in a proprietary food? No, that should not imply that the resulting product is a proprietary food. Other than additives, other than ingredients utilized in the proprietary foods must either be standardized or permitted for usage in the preparation of other standardized food under these regulations. So any additives or ingredients utilized in the proprietary food, right, must either be standardized or permitted for usage in the preparation of other standardized food under these regulations. However, FSSAI may specify from time to time exclusion of defined ingredients, right. So that is why everywhere I am mentioning the time, date and month, even year, everything, because then and there may be a changes and revisions based on the scientific evidences, right. So based on that, the FSSI may specify time to time the exclusion of definite ingredients also. So once it was standardized, so there may be a chance to remove them from the standardized condition based on the revisions and reports. And preparatory foods may also have vitamins, minerals in quantities not in excess of 1 RDA of the relevant micronutrients. So RDA is recommended dietary allowances. Only those additives and at the levels that have been mentioned in Appendix A, so that we are going to see, this is the appendix. Mentioned in Appendix A of these regulations may perhaps be used in the proprietary foods, and according to the grouping and subcategory of foods they are mentioned in. So FSSI has also made it compulsory to mention on the labels the food category or subcategory together with the generic name, nature and composition of proprietary food, namely oils, fats, oats and pasta. So this proprietary food means like the ownership, right. So only particular company will be manufacturing that particular food, right. So that is the way the proprietary foods are categorized. So these proprietary foods also has got many additive which is already there in the standardized food item itself, right. But here what it is told, the FSSI may specify from time to time the exclusion of that particular definite ingredients. And also if they have any vitamins and minerals in quantities which should not be in excess amount already specified by the FSSI for the relevant micronutrient levels, which is nothing but a recommended dosage allowance or recommended dietary allowance. And also the preparatory food items should have the proper labeling, right. So in that label the food category and subcategory together with the generic name, nature and composition of the proprietary food also to be mentioned. So this is one particular example I have taken from the regulations 2017. There are many tables under this Appendix A. So this we are going to see, and I will also show the other examples for other tables. The table 1 shows about the list of food additives for use in bread and biscuits. And so this is the category of the food, like acidity regulators, the category of the food additives. So if it is a sodium fumarate, it is general manufacturing GMP for the bread, and if you are seeing the acetic acid or lactic acid, so they have mentioned even 2500 ppm max. Okay. So for biscuits it is under GMP regulations only. So like this there are many tables under the same appendix. So the list of food additives for use in bread and biscuits that we have seen, and use in edible oils and fats, and use in fish and fish products, and to use in thermally processed fruits, thermally processed vegetables, and use in sugars and salt. Almost 20 tables are there in appendix. So you can get them in the if you browse the Food Safety and Standards Amendment Regulation 2017 Appendix A. So you will get to know about various categories and subcategory level of foods and their recommended allowances. The next one we already talked about, the Codex Alimentarius, right. So we are going to see about this. The food was mainly produced, sold, consumed locally, right. But till the last century the amount of food traded internationally has grown exponentially. So in ancient days, so it is a local food market, right. They are produced, sold and consumed locally, but last century the amount of food traded internationally has grown exponentially, and a quantity and variety of food never before possible travels the globe today. So in such case it is not only the FSSI Act, right. So whatever we use in India, so it also has to be of international standards, otherwise we will not be able to export the foods which are prepared in India. So in that line, so we also supposed to review the international food laws and FDA regulations, food and drug administration regulations. So for that only we are going to discuss about this. So in that case, the Codex Alimentarius, international food standards, guidelines and codes of practice contribute to the safety, quality and fairness of this international food trade. Consumers can trust the safety and quality of the food products they buy, and importers can trust the food they ordered will be in accordance with their specifications. So if it is coming under the whatever the food items the consumers consume or the importers can import, so if that is under the standards of Codex Alimentarius, so they can purely trust those food items. The Codex standards are based on sound science provided by independent international risk assessment bodies or ad hoc consultations organized by FAO, Food Agricultural Organization, and WHO, World Health Organization. So the both consumers as well as importers can blindly trust the Codex standards because they are based on sound science provided by independent international risk assessment bodies or ad hoc consultations organized by Food Agricultural Organization as well as World Health Organization. And also the World Trade Organization members, if they wish to apply any stricter food safety measures than those set by Codex, may be required to justify these measures scientifically. So that means the trust level is that much. So even if some of the WTO members, that means the World Trade Organization members wish to apply any stricter food safety measures, then those set by the Codex, they may require to justify those measures scientifically. So that means the Codex Alimentarius standards are internationally accepted standards. So then next one is the FSSAI compliance criterion for import of food products in India. So the food articles imported to India from foreign countries and distributed in India need to conform to the FSSAI regulations or suffer restrictions on import. Okay. So the whatever imported to India from foreign countries and distributed in India need to conform to the FSSAI regulations or suffer restrictions on import. The FSSAI has also made the stringent regulations for packaging and labeling under food safety and standards, so which comes under packaging and labeling category. Okay. So in 2011. So FSSAI implemented stringent regulations for packaging and labeling also, because when it is imported from the foreign countries, it should be in the English language, right, because the foreign country language we may not know, and in that case we may not be able to read what is written in the packaging as well. So the FSSAI Food Safety and Standards Regulation in 2011 also applied stringent regulations on packaging and labeling as well. So example is all chocolates as defined in the Food Safety and Standards or Food Product Standards and Food Additives Regulation 2011 are to be prepared from milk only. So they cannot contain any vegetable oils or fats. Labels need to mention artificial flavors used to comply with the FSSAI regulations. So this is where many foreign chocolate companies were trapped, because as per the FSSAI regulation, the Food Safety and Standards Regulation 2011, only the milk to be used, and vegetable oil or fats should not be used in the chocolates, and also their labels need to mention any artificial flavors they are used for that particular preparation of chocolates. So that also should comply with the FSSAI regulations. If these guidelines are not adhered, then the chocolates are not permitted. The global chocolate manufacturing giants are suffering a huge loss as a consequence of this particular food safety and standards regulation in 2011. So I just put a example here. So it is taken from Financial Express newspaper on April 18, 2005. The Cadbury seeks Center not to use vegetable fat in chocolates. So it is said that the Cadbury India Managing Director Bharat Puri told Financial Express, world over 5% vegetable fat is allowed to be used in chocolate. In India, however, this is not so. So we have got stringent regulations in that. So that is why they were mentioning about the how much dollars they are losing per ton. So here only the key ingredients what is allowed in India is milk, sugar and cocoa, and sometimes a chocolate to qualify one has to have cocoa as an ingredient. So we cannot use the vegetable fats or vegetable oils in that. So this is just to tell you about that. Okay, so then the same FSSAI compliance criteria for import of food products in India. So FSSAI stipulates that all ingredients including additives need to be mentioned on labels in descending order of their composition by weight and volume. So the additives needs to be mentioned on the labels of the food in descending order by their composition as well as by weight and volume, which for alcoholic beverages is not always possible. So if that is the case, so the import of any alcoholic beverages must suffer with this stringent regulation. The liquor imports have therefore fallen since labels that fail to mention additives like color, water, flavoring, preservatives are all withheld at ports itself. Right. So these import liquor have therefore fallen because they cannot mention the composition like color, water, flavoring, preservatives etc. on their label. So they cannot be sold in India. Another stipulation for food products is to have inseparable labels, not as a stickers. So the label should be inseparable, it is not like a stickers. Food products with detachable labels are also withheld when it comes to ports. To ensure consumer safety, as some of these stickers are only in Chinese and Japanese, so consumers cannot understand what is written. So these reasons have compelled many foreign companies to withdraw from India. So another FSSAI strict regulation is that the label should be printed in English language, and Chinese, Japanese, most of the labelings will be done in their language, either Chinese or Japanese. So that also problem with this FSSAI. So because of that, those imported companies were compelled to withdraw from India. So the compliance criteria wise, one is in chocolates there should not be any vegetable fat and oils that we have seen, and also the labeling, it should not be a stickers, it should be a inseparable labels, and the label should have got the additives and ingredients in descending order of their composition, which one is low in the end, which one is high at the top, by their composition, weight and volume. And for alcoholic beverages, since this particular categorization of their ingredients and additives based on their weight and volume is not possible, so they are failed to meet the standards of FSSAI in India. And another thing is the label should be of English language. Because of that, certain companies also withdrawn their import from India. There are certain compliance criteria, so we are going to discuss certain things, and I request you, as always, I request you to read further for any further compliance criteria for labeling of imported food in India. The language on labels must be in English as per FSSAI regulations 2011. The vegetarian, non-vegetarian must be declared by affixing a symbol for vegetarian and non-vegetarian on packages. This you might have seen, certain that red symbol is for non-veg and green symbol is for vegetarian. Mention name and complete address of the importer in India, and mention net weight or number of measures of volumes of contents, and mention batch number or lot number or code number and FSSAI license number as well, and month, year in which the commodity is manufactured or prepared, and declare best before date of the packaging. Mention nutritional information, nutritional facts per 100 grams or 100 milliliter per serving of food product on the label. This also we have seen in aseptic processing lecture. The product, right, the sterilized milk product, how it was defined in the labeling. So, it is defined in the descending order, and also it was done for 100 grams or probably 100 ml. And name and address of the manufacturer should be mentioned on the label, and FSSAI logo and license number of the importer should be available on the label. So, these are all certain compliance criteria for labeling of imported food product. So, there are lot many. So, I request you to further refer the references which is given at this end of this lecture. The Indian food safety regulations are primarily based on the Codex Alimentarius to meet the international standards. The Codex was formed with the collaborative efforts of WHO as well as FAO, two eminent United Nations health and food bodies. The Codex Alimentarius International Food Standards, guidelines and codes of practice contribute to the safety and quality of the food that reaches the consumers, and FSSAI regulations adhere to international standards as well to make certain export businesses, and other international standards formulated by global agencies like the European Food Safety Authority, Food Standards Australia, New Zealand, and the US FDA, Food and Drug Administration from US, have also to some extent been assimilated, integrated and harmonized into Indian standards, thereby bringing them almost at par with the global standards. So, even though we are discussing now about the FSSAI, right, so this is also the standards are also derived based on the global standards, okay, so that we will not face any problem in terms of standards and safety. And it is said that the global agencies like European Food Safety Authority, Food Standards Australia, New Zealand and US FDA, right, Food Drug Administration, have also contributed some extent in the assimilation, integration and harmonization of Indian standards, thereby bringing them almost at par with the global standards. So, actually in that line, so we also will review quickly about the FDA regulations and also some of the European regulations, so which has also got great impact on the Indian standards. So, there should not be any confusion that why the international laws or US regulations and European regulations are discussed here in the Indian context, but most of the Indian standards were also derived from them to make this as a global standard, it's not only for India. So, the agencies responsible for food is Environmental Protection Agency in terms of drinking water and pesticides, and Food and Drug Administration FDA, food, not meat, drug, dietary supplements, cosmetics, medical derivatives, bottled water, seafood, wild game. So, that means exotic meat and eggs in shell, wine beverages with less than 7% alcohol, everything will come under the agency of Food and Drug Administration. Then Federal Trade Commission, right, which is for advertising, Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, TTB, which is for alcohol, and United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, right. So, this takes care of the raw vegetables and fruits, meats, poultry, processing and grading of eggs. So, whatever left here, right, in food, the meat is not come under the category of Food and Drug Administration. So, for that the United States Department of Agriculture, so which grades the raw vegetables, foods, meats, poultry, processing and grading of eggs. So, what is USDA regulations? The FSSAI, so this is nothing but Food Safety and Inspection Services, right. FSIS is Food Safety Inspection Service Division of USDA, is responsible for meat and poultry inspection, okay. If a processing plant sells products in state only, the inspection can be performed by a state inspectors. Facilities can opt for federal or state inspection, federal means centrally. A state's program must enforce requirements at least equal to those imposed by the Federal Meat and Poultry Products Inspection Acts. So, the state cannot have its own regulations. So, they also should enforce the requirements at least equal to those imposed by Federal Meat Poultry Products Inspection Acts. if inspected by a state, the product sale is limited to that particular states, whatever we followed in India, right. So, if the business is done by interstates through 2 or more states, then we also told as per the FSSI, we supposed to take each state's permission, the same with USDA as well. So, the regulations says that, so the XCFR federal regulations, so X means title and this Y means section and Z is nothing but a part and A is nothing but a subpart. So, this is the way the regulations were given. And FSIS canning regulations, so here we are going to see only the important things. Okay. So, to achieve commercial sterility using scheduled process determined by processing authority. So, this we have discussed in earlier thermal processing lectures itself. So, for example, 9 CFR 318.300 which is for canned meat products and 9 CFR 381.300 which is for canned poultry products. These are FSIS canning regulations. Then 7 CFR 52, these are standards for grades for certain fruits and vegetables. So, they are administered by Agricultural Marketing Service of USDA. So, this is called AMS. Okay. So, this I have just put as a example for FSIS canning regulations. Then various FDA regulations, Food, Drug and Administration regulations. So, this we have already seen here. So, what are all the foods covered under the category of FDA? So, here we have seen about the USDA regulations, here we have seen about FSIS canning regulations. So, here now FDA regulations. So, the 21 CFR 1 to 99 talks about general regulations for the enforcement of FD&C Act, FPLA and color additives, and 21 CFR 100 to 169. So, they cover food standards, general manufacturing practices, low acid foods, acidified foods and food labeling, and 21 CFR 170 to 199. So, they cover food additives, and 21 CFR 101 covers about food labeling, principal display panel. So, this I discussed for FSSI standards in India. So, this is the 21 CFR 101 under FDA. So, this talks about also the food labeling which is mainly on principal display panel, right. And 21 CFR 108, so that covers the emergency permit control. Acidified foods 21 CFR 108.25, low acid food 21 CFR 108.35, and 21 CFR 110 current GMPs. The current GMPs is nothing but CGMP. So, this we discussed in sanitation lecture itself, and 21 CFR 113 is for low acid food, 114 is for acidified foods. So, these two comes under here, right, food standards, GMPs, low acid food, acidified food and labeling. So, 10 is for current GMPs, 113 is for low acid food, 114 is for acidified food. So, these are FDA regulations. So, this you can browse if you put 21 CFR 113. So, all the regulations which are being followed for low acid food will come. Okay, so you can access the website www.fda.government. So, in that you will get all this information. And 21 CFR 155 are standards for canned vegetables, 182 for GRAS list, generally regarded as safe list, and 21 CFR 170.20, so they are for principles for evaluating safety of food additive, and 21 CFR 171, they are instructions for preparing a food additive petition, and 21 CFR 73, 74, 81 are for color additives, 21 CFR 58 good laboratory practices, so pre-market testing, and 21 CFR 155.194, so this is for tomato product identity, and 21 CFR 102.30, 102.32, 102.33 129, 59 FR 61529, everything is for juices and water. So different regulations, they may be put in different categories. For example, if you go for 21 CFR 171, so it mainly talks about the instructions for preparing food additive petition, but for juices and water there may be certain regulations told in different places of the FDA regulations. And this is another thing. So when I was talking about the nutraceuticals, I told whatever the claim we are making here supposed to comply with the scientific evidences. So based on the scientific evidences, FDA authorized certain health claims of the products. So those were listed here. So it may be helpful for you to understand the nutraceutical benefits here, because it is approved by Food and Drug Administration. The general regulations are given in 21 CFR 101.14. The calcium on osteoporosis effect, right. So this is the disease. So calcium effect on osteoporosis is given under 21 CFR 101.72, and fat which is related to cancer. So those regulations were given in 21 CFR 101.73, and sodium level on hypertension which is given in 21 CFR 101.74, and saturated fats, cholesterol and on coronary heart diseases which is given in 21 CFR 101.75. Then fiber containing grains, fruits, vegetables on cancer is given in 21 CFR 101.76, and fiber containing grains, fruits and vegetables on CHD, coronary heart diseases, which is given in 21 CFR 101.77, and fruits and vegetables and on cancer is given in 21 CFR 101.78, and folic acid and neural tube defects which is given in 21 CFR 101.79, sugar alcohols on dental caries, so which is given in 21 CFR 101.80, soluble fiber from whole oats etc. on CHD is given in 21 CFR 101.81, soy protein on CHD 21 CFR 101.82, plant sterols, stenols on CHD is given in 21 CFR 101.83. So this is FDA authorized health claims based on the scientific evidence. So these federal regulations comfortably discusses about the diseases and food components or dietary supplements against that particular diseases based on scientific evidence provided to FDA. So we can totally trust these composition on that particular diseases. The next one is the GMA, which is nothing but Grocery Manufacturers Association in US, and NFPA, which is nothing but National Food Processors Association. So they came up with certain bulletins as a regulations. 26L talks about thermal processes for low acid foods in metal containers. 27L talks about the tomato products, and 30L talks about the processes for low acid canned foods in glass containers, and 32L talks about an information bulletin on retort operation. 32L talks about the information bulletin on retort operation, and 41L discusses about flexible packaging integrity bulletin, and 43L gives the guidelines about the validation guidelines for automated control of food processing systems used for the processing and packaging of preserved foods. And 44L talks about the continuous rotary sterilizers design and operation. 43L talks about the validation guidelines for automated control of food processing systems used for the processing and packaging of preserved foods. So again here those bulletins are given as an example. So there are lot many. So you may refer based on your requirements, or some of you are working in particular industry. So based on your needs you can browse in the food safety standards or FDA to get to know more about all the bulletins or whatever the required bulletins for your industry. And there are EU and UK regulations as well. The European Union food laws can be accessed in this particular website, which is www.efsa europa.eu, and UK food laws can be accessed in www.food.government.uk. So, the Food Standards Agency is FSA for UK food laws. For European food laws, they have got European Food Safety Authority, EFSA. So, because we have already discussed enough about, so again it will be the regulation numbers and what it discusses about. So, I would like to give you as a home assignment to check for its various regulations implied by European Union as well as United Kingdom. So, in this particular class we first discussed about the FSSAI regulation, so which is nothing but the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. So, what should be the procedure to get the standards and safety check for the standardized food and non-standardized food, and also what are all the regulations followed for imported and exported food. And also we said that for imported food, so the FSSAI got stringent regulations, and because of that certain companies also suffer quite a lot because of these stringent regulations, but these are for food safety and standards only. And also for exporter, so they may be under the regulation acts, but they do not require any food safety license because they do not sell or distribute their products in India. And also we told about whatever the safety standards are drawn by FSSAI, so that comes under this Codex Alimentarius regulations, the Codex standards. So, to comply that Codex standards, so it also has to be derived, or it has also to be par with the international food safety and standard laws. So, in that line, so we have discussed about the FDA regulations, right. So, from US, so whatever I have discussed other than India is mostly USDA regulation and FSIS scanning regulations and FDA regulations. And also as we discussed in nutraceuticals, so we have also checked about the authorized health claims which is proposed by FDA on the nutraceuticals, and also certain bulletins which are given by GMA, which is nothing but Grocery Manufacturers of Association US and National Food Processors Association US. So, that also we have seen about, and I have given you to check the European and UK regulations, so that because as we said earlier, the FSSAI also includes the international food safety and standards and their laws to be par with international food safety and standards. So, in that case we also have to know about the US standards, European standards as well as the UK regulations to get to know more about them. Okay, so with this I will end this lecture, and so these two books I have used for this particular lecture, and for Indian food regulations, right. So, that for that I have accessed this particular website which is last accessed on July to take some points. So, other than that for almost all these laws we have just put as examples, right, as an example we discussed, and to get to know more about that, so please refer their website. As I told in the last class also, all these sanitation regulatory bodies also can be accessed on their particular website, because now we have got lot of information in the webs. And also the books, what are all the disadvantages, because as I said it needs revision and amendments within 2 years, right. So, in that case it would not be a wise idea to refer any books for the recent amendments. So, in that case, so we will be able to get to know recent amendments in their website only. So, in that case only I am urging you to refer their website, or requesting you to refer their website for the recent amendments and the recent regulations which is improvised or which is modified to gain more knowledge on that. Okay, thank you.